My boss demanded I work during my honeymoon. My resignation email went viral, and now his company is falling apart. I, 32M, never imagined my resignation email would cause the implosion of an entire company, but here we are. It started 3 years ago when I joined a mid-sized software development firm that had made a name for itself in our industry. The company had about 80 employees and was known for delivering quality work, albeit with tight deadlines. Initially, I was thrilled. The pay was good, the projects were interesting, and I was learning a lot. My direct supervisor seemed reasonable, and the CEO occasionally walked through our department, giving everyone a thumbs up and asking how things were going. But within 6 months, I noticed the cracks. Our team of developers was constantly understaffed for the workload we carried. When one senior developer left, they weren't replaced. Instead, his responsibilities were divided among the rest of us. Then another left, and the same thing happened. Soon, my 40-hour workweek turned into 60, often stretching to 70 during crunch periods. It's just temporary, my supervisor would say. We're hiring soon. They never did. Despite the growing pressure, I stuck around. I'd met my now wife during this period, and she understood my situation. She worked in marketing and was familiar with toxic work environments. We'd commiserate over dinner about unreasonable demands and burning the midnight oil. Last year, I proposed, and we set our wedding date for early summer. I put in my time off request 6 months in advance, making it clear I'd be taking 3 weeks off, 2 for the wedding and a honeymoon in Greece, plus 1 week to settle back in. My supervisor approved it reluctantly, but reminded me to tie up all loose ends before leaving. As the wedding approached, the pressure at work intensified. A major client had signed on for a complete overhaul of their system with an aggressive timeline. I was assigned as the lead developer, despite my protests about my upcoming absence. "You're the best person for this," the CEO told me directly. "We're counting on you. But don't worry, we'll manage while you're gone." 2 weeks before my wedding, my supervisor called me into his office. "We need to talk about your time off," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "The project timeline has shifted, and we need you to be available during your honeymoon." I stared at him. Available? What does that mean exactly? Just check your email daily, maybe join a call or 2. Nothing major. I reminded him that we'd be in remote parts of Greece with spotty internet at best. He smiled thinly. "Then find better spots. This project can make or break our relationship with this client. Everyone needs to pull their weight." I left his office seething, but said nothing. My fiancée suggested I start looking for another job immediately, but with the wedding planning and everything else, I put it off. "I'll deal with it after we get back," I promised her. 3 days before our wedding, the CEO himself called me while I was finalizing arrangements with our venue. "I understand you're hesitant about staying connected during your trip," he said without preamble. "But this isn't optional. We need you to check in daily and be prepared to put in at least 4 hours of work each day. The client is pushing for updates, and no one else understands the code base like you do." "That's because you've never replaced the senior developers who left," I said, my patience evaporating. "And I've been telling you for months that we need to document the system better and cross-train the team." "That's not the issue right now," he cut me off. "The issue is that you're abandoning us at a critical time. I thought you were a team player. I put in my request 6 months ago. You approved it. Circumstances change. Business needs come first. That's the reality of the professional world." I took a deep breath. "I'm getting married in 3 days. I'll be on my honeymoon. I won't be working." There was a pause on the line. "Then I suggest you think carefully about your future with this company." The threat was clear. I ended the call and immediately told my fiancée, who was furious. "They're going to fire you for taking your approved honeymoon? That's insane." The next morning, I received an email from HR requesting a pre-departure meeting. When I arrived, my supervisor and the CEO were both there, along with the HR director. We wanted to clarify expectations. The HR director began smoothly. "Given the critical nature of the project, we're asking you to be available for work during your absence. If this isn't possible, we may need to reconsider your role on the team and potentially your position with the company." I looked at each of them. These people who had squeezed every ounce of productivity from me for 3 years while continuously promising things would improve. "Let me be clear," I said. "I'm getting married. I'm going on my honeymoon. I will not be checking email, taking calls, or writing code during that time. If that's a problem, I'm happy to tender my resignation right now." The CEO leaned forward. "No one's asking you to resign. We're asking you to be a professional and fulfill your responsibilities to this company. Many people work during their honeymoons. It's not unusual." "It's unusual to me," I replied. And to my fiancée, who's expecting to have my full attention during what should be one of the most special times of our lives. The meeting ended in a stalemate, with the CEO telling me to think about it and let them know my decision by the end of the day. I went back to my desk and typed up my resignation letter. It was straightforward and professional, stating that I was resigning effective immediately due to the company's attempt to force me to work during my pre-approved honeymoon time. I detailed the consistent pattern of understaffing, overwork, and broken promises I'd experienced during my tenure. Before sending it, I forwarded myself copies of all the relevant emails, my original time-off request, and its approval, project timelines showing we were understaffed, emails where I'd raised concerns about knowledge siloing, and the latest meeting invitation from HR. Then I sent the resignation letter to my supervisor, the CEO, and HR. I copied in my team members as well, explaining that I was sorry to leave them in the lurch, but couldn't continue under these conditions. Within an hour, my access was cut off, and security was escorting me out of the building. My now former supervisor watched silently as I packed up my desk, his face a mixture of anger and panic. He knew exactly how much critical knowledge was walking out the door with me. The wedding was beautiful. The honeymoon was perfect. We swam in crystal-clear waters, ate incredible food, and didn't check our work emails once. It was exactly what we needed. When we returned, I had hundreds of messages on LinkedIn and my personal email. My resignation letter had somehow found its way to social media and gone viral. A screenshot had been posted on Twitter by one of my former colleagues, anonymized, but with the company easily identifiable to those in the industry, and it had struck a nerve. Thousands of people shared similar stories of employers trying to invade their personal time, of being understaffed and overworked, of being made to feel guilty for taking earned time off. Business journals picked up the story. Industry blogs were discussing it. My former company was being named and shamed across the internet for their toxic work culture. I also had 5 interview requests from competing firms who had recognized the company from the details and wanted to talk to me immediately. Within 2 weeks, I had a new job at a company known for its healthy work-life balance. The pay was better, the hours were reasonable, and they had a strong policy against contacting employees during vacation time. Meanwhile, my former company was imploding. The client whose project I'd been leading had pulled out after hearing about the turnover and management issues. Other clients were asking questions, and employees were leaving in droves. First my former team members, then people from other departments. The CEO tried to do damage control, posting a statement about how they valued work-life balance and how the situation had been misrepresented. No one was buying it. Former employees came forward with their own stories of mistreatment, creating a tsunami of bad press. 3 months later, I heard from my former supervisor. He'd also left the company, along with nearly 70% of the staff. The company had lost major clients and was struggling to stay afloat. They'd had to downsize their office space and were desperately trying to rebuild their reputation. The CEO still doesn't get it, my ex-supervisor told me over coffee. He thinks this is all because of your email, not because of the years of bad management that led to it. He's blaming social media rather than looking in the mirror. 6 months after my resignation, the company announced it was being acquired by a larger firm, essentially a fire sale to salvage what was left of the business. The CEO stepped down, though rumor has it he was forced out by the board. Looking back, I never intended to cause such upheaval. I just wanted to enjoy my wedding and honeymoon without work interruptions, something that should be a basic right for any employee. But my resignation email became a catalyst for something bigger, exposing a toxic culture that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. My wife sometimes jokes that our honeymoon technically never ended, since I never went back to that job. In a way, she's right. I set a boundary and held firm, despite the pressure and threats. And while I didn't anticipate the viral aftermath, I don't regret standing my ground. The new job isn't perfect. No job is. But when I recently requested time off for our first anniversary trip, my manager simply said, "Have a great time. Don't even think about work while you're gone." And that, more than anything, tells me I made the right choice. Update asterisk. It's been almost a year since everything went down, and I've gotten so many questions that I thought I'd share a few updates and clarifications. First, I've been asked repeatedly for a copy of the resignation email. I'm not comfortable sharing the exact text, both for privacy reasons and because it could still potentially lead to legal issues. What I will say is that it wasn't a burn the bridges manifesto. It was direct and factual, outlining the situation with the honeymoon, the history of overwork, and my reasons for leaving immediately rather than providing notice. Second, I didn't leak the email myself. One of my team members shared it within the company, and from there it spread to industry circles before hitting social media. I had no idea this was happening until I got back from Greece. Third, regarding potential legal issues. Yes, there were some threats made. The company initially sent a letter claiming I had violated my employment contract by sharing confidential information I hadn't, and by failing to provide the required notice period, which was waived when they escorted me out immediately. My new employer's legal team helped me draft a response, and we never heard anything further. I suspect they realized pursuing it would only generate more negative publicity. Fourth, many have asked if I feel guilty about the company's collapse and people losing their jobs. The truth is, I have complex feelings about it. I never wanted anyone to suffer because of my actions, but the company had been mistreating employees for years. My email didn't create the problems, it just exposed them. Most of my former colleagues have found better positions elsewhere, and several have reached out to thank me for being the one who finally stood up to management. Finally, the most common question, would I do it again? Absolutely. Standing up for myself and protecting my time with my new wife was one of the best decisions I've ever made. The fact that it sparked a larger conversation about toxic work cultures is something I'm proud of, even if that wasn't my intention. My wife and I are doing great. We're talking about buying a house next year and starting a family. My new job continues to respect boundaries between work and personal life. And I've become much more selective about the companies I consider working for in the future, asking pointed questions about expectations, staffing, and time-off policies during interviews. If there's a lesson in all this, it's that no job is worth sacrificing your personal life and relationships for. Companies that demand such sacrifices usually have deeper problems, and no matter how irreplaceable you think you are, you're not. The company will survive without you, or it won't, which suggests the problems ran much deeper than one person taking their approved time off. Thanks to everyone who's reached out with support and shared their own stories. It's been heartening to see how many people are pushing back against toxic work expectations, one boundary at a time.